compelling detective story, a cloak and dagger action, and a romantic drama, all these stories were taken from real life. The history of Kazakhstan is inseparable from the world history. Reflections on history, our version.
The mystery beneath the floating roof. Flowers, neat paths, flashlights, a typical Chinese courtyard, and the typical flying silhouette. The bent ends of the roof, dragons, and bright colors. What is that building located in Jarkent? Chinese style, of course, but it's called the Mosque, or Madras. The story has become a legend and its heroes are not mythical. How merchant Yuldashev earned his millions and where the buildings were gone. What are the secret techniques used by Chinese architect and what has happened to the architect himself? The secrets of the old mosque. The architect was Han Pik, Chinese. We see in these documents also information about the merchant Valiahun Yuldashev. Generally, a lot of legends about him survived. Chapter 1. At the Celestial Gates. A joke about the reasons for the return of Kuja. The Russian ambassador to China accidentally said, as if the Emperor Alexander II did not mind to return Kuja to China. When the Chinese mission filed a claim on the basis of these words in St. Petersburg, the Emperor was supposed to have said, "The ambassador's stupid, but since he's promised, we have to give it to them." From Georgy Hin's Sketches from a Trip to Semirechye. In 1871, a detached unit under the command of Gerasim Kolpakovsky occupied Kuja. 10 years on, by an agreement with the Chinese side, they controlled the situation in the city. But then, the Russian military left Kuja, and with them, some part of the population did as well. They were mostly Muslims. The city of Jarkent was specially built by the settlers. In 1881, the territories of the Ili Valley went to the Russian Empire, and here in the documents for the first time arises the name of the supposed main customer of Jarkent Mosque. When immigration of Russian peasants and Cossacks, Kazakhs, and Uyghurs from the territory of Kuja began, the famous Uyghur feudalist Jalilov took the work order, and Jalilov had a clerk, Valiahun Yuldashev.
Уйгурский феодал Джалилов, а у Джалилова был приказчик Валиахун Юлдашев.
Young, handsome, enterprising, he was the clerk for a short time. Feudalist Jalilov shortly realized that it is difficult to transport people and it is unlikely he will manage it. But Yuldashev took the job and he performed it well. A courtyard enclosed in the middle of it is the entry and exit. What did Valiahun Yuldashev do? Well, on one side there are barns, and on the other side sit Russian intendants who count passing convoys. Valiahun wheeling his cart. On the intendant's record, he leaves for the other door, went around the wall, and again this cart rides in. Thus, one cart turns into 10 carts. And they say this way Valiahun gained his fabulous wealth. Within a few years, he became an unofficial head of the city. He built a palace with 40 rooms, which has not been preserved. A visionary, always correct, Yuldashev charms with his behavior. Contemporaries wrote about the merchant. He's built dozens of houses for government agencies, set up shop, he gave money to the poor so that they could set up farming, and he began to quickly increase his capital. Illiterate in Russian, he has a tremendous memory. He did not make any notes. However, he taught his children to read and write, and started the office. The whole economic life of the northern part of the country was concentrated in his hands. From Georgy Hin's Sketches from a Trip to Semirechye. Generally, Valiahun Yuldashev was not very modest in enriching himself. And nevertheless, Yuldashev was mostly a positive hero in history. In 1887 in Jarkent, the meeting of the Muslim community and a fateful decision ensued. The story begins with the fact that Muslims are asking the merchant Vali Bey to build a mosque. Vali Bey gets down to business.
Содан Вали бай башылыққа алады да, осы мешітті тұрғызу үшін жұмыс істейді.
It is believed that it was the idea of a merchant to perpetuate his name in history, to build without a single nail and looking like a pagoda. Still, Vali Akhund lived in Kuljar. By the way, there is another legend. Allegedly, once the merchant gambled away, they said he loved to play cards, and he heard a voice in his sleep. If you want to atone for your sins, build a mosque. Chapter 2. A mysterious architect. They say Yuldashev had been working for someone who can implement his plan. According to others, offering to build a temple, the merchant knew exactly who would be the architect. Perhaps he wanted to build a mosque similar to the one he attended as a child in Kuljar.
А еще здесь очень уютные.
And here are very cozy, painted with heart and soul with the love of living courtyards.
Любовью к жизни сделанные дворики.
The old part of the city. A few more turns and the old mosque is near at hand. Allegedly, here in 1882, the last prayer was read before the immigrants left the city. Among them was Yuldashev's family. Perhaps this temple became a prototype of the Jarkent one. It should be noted that similar structures, a mosque looking like a pagoda, have been known since the 8th century. Of course, mainly built in China. In general, it's not excluded that Yuldashev already had shown the architect from Kuljar. Vali Bey had connections in China. There he found a talented architect, Hon Peak, to build a mosque.
Шақыратты, осындай мешіт салу керек екен. Соны қолына алса, соны салып берсін деген ойды айтады.
According to legend, the Chinese architect named Hon Peak built two mosques, one in Shanghai, the other in Beijing. And they were so beautiful that the Chinese emperor ordered to kill the architect so that he did not build any mosques anywhere else. But the architect escaped and built another mosque here in Jarkent. And neither the mosque in Beijing nor the one in Shanghai were preserved. Only the one in Jarkent is left. What other buildings were built by the Chinese architect Hon Peak, history does not say. But he appeared in Jarkent in 1887. According to one version, he had some trouble with the Chinese authorities, and merchant Yuldashev helped him to hide. He had some connections because he worked in China too. No identity data of the architect were recorded in the found documents. It is unknown where he was born, studied, and lived until Jarkent. Even the name is a question. It was decided to call him Hon Peak. References to the architect are preserved mainly in legend. He was only 35 or 37 years old. He was very young. You know, it's said, but unfortunately not been confirmed. Plans and drawings of Jarkent Mosque were also not found. They say there were no papers, but of course, Hon Peak had experience in construction of similar buildings. The Chinese tried not to spread their art outside their country. And still, it is not understood. How could the architect implement such a complex architectural structure without any drawings? Perhaps he destroyed all his papers on purpose. Allegedly, all the work was produced under his personal and oral instructions. Where was the architect Hon Peak kept? He worked here? I say no. And they rented an apartment in the countryside for him. And every day his assistants went to the construction site with the task. First, they prepared the site for construction. They brought clay and trampled it down with the help of the whole city. It turns out that about 30,000 people participated in laying the foundation. In general, according to various sources, the Chinese architect was assisted by about 2,000 workers, a sort of Babylon. the Kazakhs, Uyghurs, Chinese, Dungan, but without the crowds, translators were always at the construction site. Chapter 3, The Secrets of the Architect. All these columns look as if they're made of stone, but in fact it's wood. Tianshan spruce to be precise, like merchant Yuldashev wanted. There is a story connected to these columns. The project has been agreed, the foundation prepared, but the construction didn't begin yet. The architect rejected the local timber. They decided to bring Tianshan spruce instead. They transported the trees and cut them into small pieces the size of a match. While the material was prepared, 3 years passed. People and workers were tired of waiting when construction would begin.
Жұмыс істегендер адамдар да жаңа мешіт салынады деген адамдар да зерге бастайды.
They say workers started to rebel. Do we collect firewood for the winter? When do we begin to build? The architect replied unmoved, as soon as we collect the right amount, I will finish everything in 6 months.
Сонымен тағы да жинайды. Сонымен әбден болдым ау деген кезде бұны тұрғызады. Ағаштар
Finally, construction began. The wooden parts were attached to each other without using nails. At the end of construction, workers noticed that the front column of the mosque was curved and complained of the architect to the merchant Valibai.
Valibay'dan aynalasındaki adamlar, onlar da şiber koy. Onlar da köp kuruluşlara katılgan adamlar. Köredi de buna öz kıyısık koy deydi.
But the architect responded with Chinese calm to these complaints. Pay and I will correct the defect. Indeed, and the merchant paid to the architect. And the architect pointed to a column in the right place, they hit it and everything was corrected. These are the stories. At that time, there were no technologies, no valves, no cars. People worked manually. How they treated wood is also unclear, and so many years later, it has not one wormhole. They say it was soaked in horse urine. Whether it was or not, the straight columns securely held the building for the 2nd century in a raw state. Architects of that time, they had secrets of construction elements of a building, especially because Jarkent Mosque was built without a single nail.
Тем более, что Жаркентская мечеть, она была построена без единого гвоздя.
The traveler, Joly Hints, writes that Yuldashev did not lose a thing. He raised money from local Uyghurs and covered all his expenses. However, this has not been proved. Hon Peak estimated his work in 36,000 gold coins. According to various sources, the entire construction process took from 3 to 8 years. It's unknown when Hon Peak left Jarkent. And did he leave? The most common legend is that he returned to China. There were rumors that this Chinese architect was punished when he returned to China. According to some sources, they cut off his hands. According to others, he was executed for disclosure of the secrets of the Chinese architecture. There are even more scary stories. There is a story that he was killed by a machine for harvesting hay. However, there are other stories too. Hon Peak lived a long and happy life. Moreover, not in China. Supposedly, he married a local girl, changed his name, and stayed here in Semirechi. Perhaps that palace of Yuldashev, with 40 rooms, which stood next to the mosque, was also built by him. About the merchant Vali Akhunov, it is known that he died in 1916. Epilogue: The Treasures of the Mosque. And another mysterious story. There were old folios in the mosque, rare editions of the Quran that were brought on request by Yuldashev from Mecca and other countries. They donated to the mosque quite a lot, but all the treasures that were kept there have disappeared. They say that during the Civil War, all the treasures were taken off the mosque and hidden somewhere. It's possible that the servants themselves hid it. They wrapped the articles in oiled goat skins, the best way to save them. Then they kneaded clay with straw from which houses were made. They made oval bricks and house walls, and they hid these books there. And just maybe, some walls of old houses in Jarkent still keep holy books and other valuables. So the secrets of the mosque under the flying roof does not end there.